The hordes of camera-toting visitors here at Auckland Zoo appear to share few attributes with the many animals imprisoned here for their pleasure. And yet there is something that all species exhibit, including our own, one way or another. Whether it be a mother tigress tending her cub, or even a monkey pleasuring itself in front of schoolchildren. All of these animals are exhibiting a force of nature which makes the world go round. It's something that we need as much as them, and it's something that Maori have long had their own name for. They say love is blind, which may well explain the success of shows like this one.
Player number 2. When you're down, what can a man do to lift your spirits?
Oh, well, I think Gary, all a man would have to do would be to put his arms around me, give me a big hug, and of course a signed blank cheque.
Blind Date was state television's first and only attempt at socially engineering romance. Predictably, Kiwis proved to be completely useless at talking dirty.
Since I've been working for a theatrical company, I've learnt to be very creative with my hands and my ideas.
Well, Andy, I'm a computer consultant, so I'd have to say I don't know how to make all the right connections.
Darling, what counts the most in your women?
Well, I think it's how good she is at lambada dancing. Lambada!
Now, that's a craze that's
Well,
really
I'm
catching
very
on in a
good.
big way.
Okay, play number 2. I am your bank manager, and you come to me for a loan. How will you convince me that you are a worthy risk?
Well, Colette, I need the money to buy a big present.
The show also provided a service for people whose desperation for fame was still in its infancy. People like Suzanne Paul, Andy Hanshandy Dye, JJ Funny Eyes Feeney, and most disturbingly of all, celebrity real estate celebrity Michael Bulgaris, who seemed to be channeling Benny Hill.
Player 3 is a client who wants to be happily married. Say hi to Mary Lucy Pelletti. And player 2, step on down to the harp. Can we have a bucket of water from this guy or something? Good Lord. Your blind date is a legal word processor and house executive. Michael Bulgaris meets Therese McDonald.
While fake TV romance may be fleeting, true love often has an iron will.
For the last 25 years, Betty Northcote has been confined to the iron lung. Or she can come out for maybe 2 hours at a time, but any more and she's in trouble.
It's hard to imagine a story more romantic than that of Betty and Noel Northcote.
I am totally dependent upon him. He does do everything for me. So it does put quite a strain on him.
Noel had even modified a bus so that he could take his beloved on romantic road trips.
Maintaining the bus is expensive, especially when it includes another iron lung.
It's something I've taken on to do, and the enjoyment it is actually of doing these things, because the way she is situated, I see lots of things that possibly other people don't see.
Aroha is all around us. But while we all seek a partner in life, for many New Zealanders, their constant companion is not necessarily another human being. Cigarettes have been the darling companion of generations of New Zealanders. We took our loved ones for a stroll, had them close at hand while playing competitive sports and took them out with us on romantic candlelit dinners. Our lips have licked and sucked on countless fingers of tobacco. It's an intimate kind of love, sensual and illicit. But authorities have long called for divorce. There were smoke-free weeks in the workplace. Some were fans.
Absolutely brilliant. For the first time in many, many, many months. We've had a nice, clean environment, beautiful day outside, lovely day inside.
Others were worried.
I wouldn't like it to last longer than a week.
The weapon of choice to separate New Zealanders from cigarettes has been statistics.
Over a quarter of all Kiwis over the age of 15 are smokers. The biggest headache is young women. Over a third of them smoke outside the workplace and in.
But early attempts at scaremongering were half-hearted.
Research into the effects of tobacco smoke on the non-smoker is very much in its infancy, but what it boils down to is this. The researchers divide smoke from a cigarette up into two categories. There's that smoke, they call it mainstream smoke. Effectively, it's already been through the lungs of the smoker, so when it passes out into the atmosphere, a lot of the pernicious elements have been filtered out by the smoker's lungs. Well, that's his bad lot.
We all know that cigarettes is a love that tears us apart. But it begins as puppy love.
I started when I was 5, and I'm 13 now, so I've been smoking about for 8 years.
What time of the day would you have your cigarettes?
In the morning, probably sometimes during interval and after school, and at lunchtime, at night time.
Oh, it's very hard giving up because I get angry sometimes when I don't have a smoke.
What would happen if you couldn't have a cigarette?
I think I would go crazy, and I'll probably punch everyone's head.
Smoking? Yeah. Smoking at your desk?
I loved it. I loved it. The old newsrooms were great because you could smoke in them. And you'd sit there and you'd have a film can, and there was something about the pall of smoke and the shower of ash going into an Imperial 66 typewriter, and just the noise of the newsroom. The first time I ever saw one approaching deadline, it was like Hades. There was this cloud of smoke through it. There was the clatter of the typewriters, the shrill ringing of the belled telephones, the teletext machines going, and people screaming into phones. It was fantastic. It was the best adrenaline surge I've ever had.
Do you miss the days when you could smoke at your desk?
I do smoke at my desk. Who's stopping me?
This is Osama bin Laden. Just one way of imbibing their sacred smoke and forbidden fumes of a plant that is undoubtedly our most loved habit-forming herb. In 1978, Dr. David Marks pulled off legally what hundreds of thousands have since done illegally. He experimented with marijuana.
Smoking pot is a ritualistic affair. The joint is passed backwards and forwards, with users sucking in large quantities of air with the smoke to increase the effects.
Well, at this moment, anywhere between 50,000 and 100,000 New Zealanders are under the influence of marijuana.
The subjects of the experiment were placed in a dark room and watched like marijuana-smoking tea party chimps.
Being stoned on cannabis can provide altered perception of sound and vision, a slowing of time, and other effects ranging from new qualities to sexual orgasm to more subtle humour.
So who was that I saw you with last night?
It also increased the user's ability to laugh at their own jokes.
It's the mayor is. I thought it was the mayor. It's about time he went out like a light. I don't think he's as stoned as we are either. I think our results show pretty clearly that the harmful and hazardous effects have been greatly overestimated.
Unlike academics, sporting administrators would have us believe that sports people have a lesser predilection to the vices of human nature than the rest of us. History, however, tells another story.
Matthew Hart, Dion Nash and Stephen Fleming are suspended for 3 matches. That means they'll miss all the one-dayers against the West Indies.
For one brief, beautiful moment in the mid-90s, cricket in New Zealand was exciting, daring and sexy, albeit totally unintentionally.
It was here at the Zomalast guest house in Paarl near Cape Town where officials say the players admitted smoking cannabis at a team barbecue 3 days before Christmas.
Many were said to have partaken, but only Dion Nash, Stephen Fleming and Matthew Hart had the courage to own up.
It was definitely a couple of days there where I didn't walk down the street, a couple of days in bush, but I mean that's to be expected, isn't it, in situations like this.
If nothing else, the incident begat our best banner banter in an otherwise banal sporting back catalogue. It's fair to say that New Zealand has had a love-hate affair with Te Papa, our national museum and gift shop. And while the arty-farty-arati like to shit on it from a great height, the public retain much Aroha for it. Indeed, they come here by the busload. Thanks in no small part to controversial exhibitions like this one. These plaster casts of famous phalluses may have shocked some, but already the Te Penis exhibition has drawn more visitors than Picasso, Monet and Colin McCann combined. For the people in every town in New Zealand, there's nothing they love more than shitting on people in other towns. In this really seen film, we see some uppity Dunedinites having a crack at poor old Invercargill.
We're from Dunedin, from South Tonight, and we're in Invercargill trying to do some filming about anything newsworthy that's going on. Do you know of anything that's worth talking about that's happening here?
Not really. No. I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue.
I'm an old retired gentleman. I don't know much going on in this town at all.
No, I can't think of it at the moment. Can you, Dan?
No.
I can't think of anything that's very tremendous that's happening just at the present moment. Perhaps there's a lull.
You can't expect to come down here with 3 or 4 days' notice and expect us to turn it on. We're very pleased to see you here all the same.
And the rest of New Zealand loved it when an Australian female impersonator came to pour scorn on the Queen City.
Queen Street, Auckland. A glittering, throbbing thoroughfare, its neon-lit emporiums strung like a string of pearls around the dusky ankle of the Pacific. The standard of literacy in New Zealand is very, very high. Almost everyone can read and write anywhere, at any time. This is where the white people live. And this is where the little Maori folk live. I suddenly felt very rude walking inside a Maori's home, but I couldn't find the chimes. You know, it's such a wonderful and exciting city, Auckland. I could go on talking about it for at least another minute and a half.
If only Dame Edna had gone to Dunedin in August of 1890, when the Dominion's first wife-swapping party was said to have been held.
Are we finished, madam?
Yes.
Well, I must say, this is rather awkward.
Yes, but also rather exciting, don't you think?
Rather.
So, how do we proceed, Lord Aubrey?
Well, the way that they played it in America was to use keys. Keys? For what purpose? Well, we each put a set of keys into the bowl, mix them up, and then randomly take one out. Whoever key one selects is the person that one swaps with, if you will. Let's get on with it presently, then.
Shall I go first?
Why not?
Whose keys are these?
They're mine.
Oh, what do we do now, then?
No. This won't do. The whole point of this game is to swap partners. So that I may go with Mrs. Frobisher and Lady Aubrey may go with Sir Graham. Oh, why didn't you say so in the first place, old boy? Yes, quite. Well, shall we?
Well, shall we do it again?
Why not?
Sadly, wife swapping never really took off in New Zealand, and the stuffy nature of Kiwi sexual mores continues to plague our marital relations to this very day.
I have heard it said that in the Orient, a man may pleasure his wife by putting his tongue where his John Thomas would normally go.
That's disgusting.
There's no doubt that Aroha is in the eye of the beholder. The love of nature is one form of Aroha of which New Zealanders are proud.
Here Greenies are taking a more liberal view. Treat people like trees, they say. This is what you prefer to hug rather than...
If it's not fun, it's not green.
But tree hugging had a serious side too, especially amongst the greenies and hippies of the 1970s. The idea may have seemed quaint and innocent, but in fact, the green movement itself was hiding a dark secret in a dark place. It was a secret that came to light unexpectedly in the summer of 1972.
Hippies, the harmless champions of the environmental movement. Their detractors like to pigeonhole them as idealist, tree-hugging peaceniks. But in Auckland's inner-city domain, the tree-hugging has taken on a sinister bent.
The Current Affairs show gallery had unearthed a rotting scandal that struck at the very heart of New Zealand's cherished clean, green image.
The broken foliage of our native trees. No, this is not the result of recent bad weather. This is man's dirty work. They call the perpetrators tree lovers, men who have intercourse with trees.
A series of bizarre sex attacks on trees from Pahutakawa to Willows occurred over 2 years. It left a shocked public in disgust, especially as some of the abused trees were just juveniles.
One beech tree was not even 12 years old. But even worse for investigators was the discovery of this dead panga, an icon of the New Zealand bush now, tragically, carnage laying in the wake of green sexual perverts.
For some, this was akin to child abuse, and police had no answer to what appeared to be an organised tree sex ring.
Yes, well, the main problem here is that there is no specific law with regard to this type of offending with flora, unless it can be considered to be vandalism. But I think in any case, in the community, it's clearly unacceptable for a man to have these type of relations with a tree.
The shameful arbophilia of 72 may have been buried in a shallow grave within our own collective memory, but this strange tale of misplaced affections proved inspirational for artists and commentators as far away as Europe. The events were even reimagined in the French erotic classic Coucher avec les arbres, or Sleeping with the Trees, the story of a woman whose dead lover is reincarnated as a poplar.
La nuit dernière, je suis retournée à lui de nouveau. À travers mes rêves, je suis transportée dans un passé qui est également un futur. Je l'ai trouvé dans une forêt où il attendait, emprisonné, tremblant dans un passé glacial, dormant avec les arbres. Son souffle à travers le bruit des feuilles, son sang, la sève de l'arbre. Ses os, des branches cassées, des branches cassées, des branches cassées.
Whether it be the love of self, the love of country, the love of God, or the love of the young women here at Showgirls in downtown Auckland, it's clear that Aroha has always played a big part in the lives of New Zealanders. From the bipolar to the bi-curious. We all want it, we all need it, and we all get it, one way or another. In this, our Aotearoa, land of Aroha.
Blind date, a blind date. It could happen on a blind date.